So welcome once again, Ade, to the Empower and Elevate Mentorship and Sponsorship Redefined program. So this is season two, and we are so pleased to have you with us as we interview different leaders, getting to know their work. So the very first question under redefining success, we have five different segments that we'll be talking about. Redefining success beyond titles and money. So the question is, how do you handle questions like, so what do you do when your work defies easy labels?
Okay, so thank you, Joanna. Thank you for having me on the podcast today. It's really a privilege and an honor to actually share a bit of my story. So how do you handle questions like, what do you do when your work defies easy labels? Well, I can start by saying I do so many things. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a hard worker, etc. Right? So my role is a niche role. I'm in finance, but I'm actually in a role in finance that a lot of people may not really know, which is sustainable investments, right? And people are like, what does that mean? I don't understand that. So what I try to do is on a really high level, you have to take it to a really high level so that people can actually understand what you do. So I start with my industry. I always say, well, I'm in finance and I'm an investor. So I invest money and I make money for people. But I work for an insurance company currently, which manages group benefits and retirements for its customers. So what I then say is like, those are liabilities. Like the company goes out and sells group benefits and retirement, and then all that fund comes in. And then what I do and what my team does is to actually invest that money, right? To ensure that you're generating a good return for your clients and that you're preserving their money when they want it back in 10, 15 years after the term insurance is up, right? So that's how you can handle those kind of questions. I think, we should actually try to simplify what we do for people, because sometimes we overcomplicate things,
That's
right?
right.
I mean, there's so many sectors and so many industries and so many, like if someone tells me that they are a data architect or architecture, like I wouldn't understand what that meant, right? But I think it's related to something to do with technology, right? I would imagine
Absolutely.
your technologies. What I've seen in them, I was like, what does data architecture mean, right? I mean, I know what architects do. They design, buildings. So are you designing data? So I think you have to be able to come down to people's level, and it also depends on who you are talking to as well too, because you probably be
Absolutely.
in the midst of people that are not in your industry or really don't have any idea of what you do. So how do you break it down to them? If I say, I'm an investor, okay, so what does that mean? Like, I help people to make money, right? I help you to increase your cash flows or your income, right? So what kind of investments would you recommend? I'm like, I'm sure a lot of people, not even a lot of people, you assume a lot of people know about investment, like buying stocks and buying shares and buying bonds, but a lot of people don't really know what that means, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
they're like, what does a stock mean, right? You know what I mean? But if I say I invest in Loblaws, I buy the shares of Loblaws. I'm really bringing it home here, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody, I think, in this country knows Loblaws. They know it's a food, retailer. We all eat, right? You know what I mean? We all shop. We either shop at one of their stores because they're everywhere around the
Hmm.
country. And I can say, well, yes, it's a company that I invest in because, I like what they do, and they're going to be around for a long, long time because people
Absolutely.
are going to be eating. So I invest there to generate a return, and they pay, the company pays dividends, right? Or if it's bonds, like what I do, the company pays interest when I loan them money, right? So bond is different from shares where you own part of the company. A bond is you're loaning the company money
Mhm.
and you expect to generate interest. You don't loan them money at 0%. You intend to generate some interest, but then they have to return your money back at the end of the term. So you have to find ways, I think, to break down what you do in such a way that, I have my 85-year-old dad and and they're not investment people, but I have to be able to explain this to them in a way that they actually understand what I'm saying.
That's right. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. So, what we do, actually beyond money or beyond title really goes a long way because it impacts other people around us. And in you being able to share uh how investment works, or what which stocks or shares that you need to invest in, is also a learning call for a lot of people. Myself, I don't even understand a lot of it, but I know I've learned quite some. So that, thank you so much for the answers to that question. So the second one is under the mentorship and sponsorship. So the question is, who was the mentor who changed everything for you? And what's one thing they did that you now replicate?
So, who was the mentor who changed everything for you? I cannot really tell you that I had one mentor that changed my whole life. Like, I've had amazing people, both men and women who have impacted my life positively, right? And I think that's what you want to have. You want to be exposed to a range of people, not in your sectors, not in your age range, people with different experiences, both men and women, younger and older, because I think you can learn a lot from everyone. But I will talk about one woman. Her name is Judith Humphrey. I don't know, she might come across this podcast, but in 2012, my company then, I used to work with Omer's Capital Markets, had sent me on a course, a Speaking as a Leader program for the emerging leaders. And Judith Humphrey owned one of the top communications outfit in Toronto and in Canada. The Humphrey Group, which is very much around, and it's,
Mm.
a lot of, financial services institutions and executives have gone through, that company and the program. So they sent me on this 6-month program, and I happened to get the owner of the company, the founder, Judith Humphrey, as my coach, right? I think that was divinely orchestrated, right? And such an amazing, wonderful woman who knew her craft so well and was able to bring out the best in you. And we hit it off right away. She helped me to refine my speaking abilities. I mean, we would go into her office. She would record me. She would critique me. We would play it back. I never like to hear myself or see myself on TV speaking. Like when I don't. But you're forced to see and hear your mistakes, and we will go over it. And she just helped refine, what was already there, and really bring it out. After that 6 months program, we actually continue that friendship. She, some people will be like, well, it was a business relationship, we're done. But honestly, she was amazing. She just kind of took me as a mentee, right? And,
Mm.
we started to have lunch, and I used to ask her about her journey, how she started out too with nothing, and building this company. And she felt so proud of me. Like, she would call me. She was like, I'm writing this book, and I would like to interview you for my book. So I had a couple of interviews where, and I was actually quoted in some of the books that are some bestsellers today. And, like, why would such a, what I mean, just giving me that opportunity, that exposure and that visibility when she didn't have to. I remember when I was transitioning from, one company to the other, and we talked about it. She's like, how can I help you? I can introduce you to that person. I can introduce you to this person. Then she went on to LinkedIn and put out a post saying, something about, I've met my mentees and this Adeola is one of them, and blah, blah, blah. Just, validating and advocating for me publicly. And I'm like, what an amazing woman. And one of the other best things that she did was, she's a member of an international women's network. And she's like, Adeola, I think you should be a member of this network. You should meet all the wonderful senior women and leaders. And she advocated for me because the network is by invitation only. So she sponsored me, like somebody else sponsors you based on your credentials and what they think you can bring to the table. And so, I got accepted into this sisterhood that is across the world, and they have a chapter in Toronto. And fast forward 5 years after, I am the Toronto chapter president, which I'm like,
Oh,
how did I get here? Like, you know what
that
I
is
mean?
amazing.
So,
Yeah.
and I've met so many other wonderful women that, I've connected with. And, one thing I take away from her is not just mentoring, but opening doors for others, like sponsorship. Wherever you can open doors, is not enough to mentor or and
Mm-hmm.
coach and advice, right?
Yep.
But if you see that opportunity that you think somebody in your network can benefit from, let them know. Connect him to other people that you think can be, that can be valuable to them, right? If there's a job or a posting, or something that you see, like, people's names should be coming to your minds, like, who in my network is going to be suited for this role, right? That I can, and I can make the introduction to the person that I know. And so that's one thing I do all the time, and she did that for me, right? And I think it's just important as women that we, I always say this, that we need to, as we climb, we need to lift others up, right? It's not just in words, but in action as well
In
too.
action, in action, in action. Oh wow, that has been one of the focal points in all the different episodes that we've been running. I remember episode 3 is about mentorship and sponsorship. Sponsors will advocate. So I see Judy played two different roles as a
Yes,
mentor and a sponsor because they're the one,
yes,
you know, that
yes,
negotiates, sits at the table for you. Like you said,
absolutely,
they introduce you, they open doors for you. That is their
yes.
role, and it's amazing that what she has deposited in you became a legacy that you are now transferring to other women.
Exactly,
Yeah, thank you
exactly.
so much for that
Hmm.
question, for your response to that question. The third one is overcoming fear and imposter syndrome. That's a big one.
It's a big one. It's a big
Yeah.
one, and especially for women and women of color,
Yep.
especially. I'm gonna go there.
The question is, what's a career risk that you took that felt terrifying in the moment, but now you're grateful for?
Okay, so I'll give you a bit of my background. So when I went to the UK to study and I finished my MBA in finance, I couldn't find a job there. So I emigrated to Canada under the skilled worker program, based on the point system. And I was accepted. I knew I wanted to be in finance and I wanted to be in investment, but I had no job. And I knew nobody here. And I didn't have a network. I didn't go to Western, for instance, right? Or Queens, which is where, a lot of the top, finance graduates are recruited from, or U of T, right? And so it was a big career risk because I could have stayed where I was comfortable, where you had family that could support you. But then I came to a country, as a young adult to work in finance, which is a predominantly white, male dominated industry. And I'm trying to break in there, right? So obviously it was a risk, right?
Yep.
Because I know a lot of people who started in this same industry but kind of fell out quickly because it wasn't happening quick enough. They moved into other industries that were probably easier to get into. But I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is what I love doing. I love researching companies. I love understanding what companies do and how they make money. And I want to help people make money. I want to be able to make those decisions and manage a portfolio. Um, and so I came, no job, and I started from ground zero, like literally, like at the call center at American Express, which had really nothing to do with investments, but
Exactly.
which also helped me understand the financial landscape and start to gain Canadian experience, which a lot of people will tell you, oh, you don't have Canadian experience. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to get this experience if you don't give it to me, right? And so it was a career risk, really, moving here. But I'm grateful that I stuck with it, right? and took all the prerequisite exams and worked hard, and thankful for the people that recognized that ability and that potential, and gave me the first chances and second, and I can count them on my hands. So it was actually quite terrifying, because you're not sure whether you're going to make it or not. You're not sure if what if it doesn't work? Do I have to retrain and go into another, field completely, which happens to some people, which is fine. But,
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. And then, being a Black woman, there were not a lot of people that looked like me in that industry at that time. This is, 27 years ago we're talking about. So it was like, you're sending out your resume with a name like Adeola Adebayo, and they're like, you know what I mean? You didn't go to Queens, you didn't go to Western Ivy, like, you know what I mean? Like, and you went to university in Leeds in Nigeria, and so it was quite terrifying. But I'm grateful that I stuck with it, because it's really fulfilling now to see some of the younger women coming up in this industry. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more, really breaking the glass ceiling, because there's still not many of us, especially women of color, right, in this space. So I'm grateful that I've stayed here, so that I can continue to impact the next generation of women that are coming behind, right, in this space.
Absolutely. And as I listen to your story, it reminds me that one of the things that a lot of people need to take away is, do not despise the days of small beginnings. Where you
Absolutely.
start from is like, planting the seed, and
It's a
then you're watching
seed.
it grow. Yeah, it's a
Exactly.
seed. Yeah.
It's a seed.
Thank you so much.
It's a
Yeah.
seed. It's a seed. Yeah.
The fourth question is on the topic building inclusive leadership. And the question is, what's an unwritten rule about success you wish would disappear?
Yeah, we're
After
laughing.
that.
That's well,
Oh,
I'm going to be totally honest and authentic and transparent here, where in certain industries there's this unwritten rule that men are better than women in certain sectors, in certain roles and certain jobs, right?
yeah.
So you've still got that gender bias, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's conscious and sometimes it's unconscious, right? Um, you also see that, and women, we go back to that imposter syndrome, where you know women feel that they have to check all the boxes, they have to have all the experience, they have all the qualifications to be able to apply for a certain senior role or so. But the men just apply, right? If they've got, and I think research has shown that they may only have 60% of what's required, but they're putting their name in the hat, right? And the women
That's right.
sometimes are not, right? So there's this unwritten, that the men have the potential, so that way they'll be better at this job. Or, what I mean, they've done this job, they've done something else, so they've got the potential, they'll be okay here. But the women, you feel, have to have done had that experience before you give them that opportunity. And I think we need to start to change that, what I mean, mindset. And I believe organizations are doing that. And it is going to require a lot of work and a lot
That's
of,
right.
what I mean, mindset shift, where,
Mm-hmm.
everyone should be given the same opportunity to succeed based on their potential, right?
Exactly.
Not
Exactly.
necessarily because they've done it before,
Yeah.
right? But but if you
Yeah.
feel like, based on the experience, the technical expertise, the people expertise, because I'm very, very, big on that, that this person can make an amazing leader, then they should be given the opportunity to, right?
Yeah.
And there's also this unwritten rule that, gosh, I have to work hard. Unless I work hard and work hard, that's the only way to succeed. And I found out. I mean, I learned that probably a little bit later than most. Just growing up in this industry, that you have to put your head down and work. It doesn't work that way. Like, you
No,
put
no,
down
it
your
doesn't.
head and not, like, and just do the work, and somebody's going to notice you and give you that. That doesn't work.
No, no. You have
That
to
that
work smarter.
you have to
Human.
work
Yeah.
smarter.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Wow.
Hard work alone would not get you there.
No, no, no.
It's about developing relationships, with the people that matter and ensuring that the people that, that matter and that make all those decisions, understand what you bring to the table and value, that you have the visibility.
That's right. That's right. That's
Right.
right. And when you have someone who is willing to sponsor you, they
Exactly.
want to trust you. That
Yes.
when they put you in a place or when they recommend you, that you're able to show up
Yeah, you're going to
and do what
deliver.
you have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
have to
So
deliver.
you have to deliver. You have to deliver. Oh wow. I love that topic, inclusive leadership. That was why I was laughing because, authenticity for me and loyalty is a key,
Yes.
right? You know what you're doing, and also, I think women should be given the room to be able to prove themselves.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
as long as you know what the work ethic of someone is, where the loyalty is, how authentic that person is. You
Mm-hmm.
should, and when you look at their brand, you see what do they
Mm-hmm.
represent? What do they
Mm-hmm.
stand for? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Give
Mm-hmm.
them that opportunity to be able to make a difference.
That's right.
It's
Absolutely.
not
Right.
about, so now it shouldn't be about gender. I don't think men can do this. Gone are those days when you say what a woman can do, men can do even more. So now you try to change it. I know they say what a man can do, a woman can do better. You know, we do say that sometimes, but I think we should have the opportunity to be able to work together, right?
Absolutely.
Encourage one another and lift each other up. It doesn't matter. It
Absolutely.
doesn't have to be because of who I am, or my race, my color,
That's
or
right.
my gender or whatever. It
That's
shouldn't
right.
be.
Right.
It's what we are able to deliver for the organizations that we're working with, because the next generation, they are looking, they are watching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if
Mm-hmm.
you're passing down a legacy, what exactly are we leaving behind?
That's
What
right.
exactly are we passing on to the next generation? Which takes us to the last question about legacy. The
Mm.
future of work and legacy. So how do you define legacy? Is it projects? Is it people? Or is it something else entirely? What is legacy? What does legacy mean to you?
So I have this personal saying that I want to live out my legacy daily. That means I want to impact people daily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's not about projects. Yes, you have to perform, you have to
Absolutely.
deliver, but for me, it's about people because people matter.
Mm-hmm.
Because if people are not motivated, if people are not empowered, if people are not they don't feel that they're valued, um, you're not going to get the performance out of them, right?
Absolutely.
At the end of the
Absolutely.
day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very big on building relationships, maintaining relationships, and valuing relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people are the ones that are going to deliver for you. People are the ones
Yeah.
that are going to have your back when you are in a tight corner.
Yeah.
So if
Absolutely.
if you haven't treated people well, right, in your journey to climbing up to success, right, how have you treated people as you've climbed up the ladder of success?
Mm.
We always have to think about that.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, a lot of people get to the top, but then how did they treat people while as they climbed up, right? At the end
Mm.
of the day,
That's a big question. That's a big question. Yeah.
how did they get there? Like, how was their journey and how was their people journey on their way to success, on
Yeah.
their way to the top, right? So for sure, I want to be remembered as somebody, like I always say to my mentees and the younger ones, that hard work, um, delivering performance, knowing your staff is non-negotiable.
It's
Like
not
literally,
negotiable at
is
all.
non-negotiable at
At
all.
all. Yeah.
But then what makes you really stand out on top of your technical expertise is that emotional intelligence, right? Is
Yeah.
that social impact that you have on people. Because I always say that leaders, you could have someone as a subject matter expert, a technically sound person, and the person might be a really bad leader because they do not have the other side, the softer
Absolutely.
skills, the empathy, the trust, collaboration, resilience, inclusiveness, which we've just talked about. But they are great at getting the job done, but, they can't hold the team together, right?
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, that's not the kind of legacy I want to leave behind, right? I want to be remembered for somebody who led with authenticity, who led with her heart, but was also absolutely brilliant at what she did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that goes a long way. 20 years down the road, or even 10, 15 years down the road, you want to be remembered for, the legacy that you left behind. You want, oh, if this person was here, this is what she would have done. And even till now, they'll still recount every single thing that you have done, right?
Yes, yes,
Positively, right? I remember
positively.
when I first joined the current organization where I was, where I came from, CRM application. In those days, as a technical engineer, they would um, so when there's an issue and we open up a knowledge base, you solve that issue, you always append your name, to
Mm,
that support on their website. So
right.
remember, so when I moved to this company, we had similar, in the course of implementation, there were some issues that we encountered, and they said, "Oh, let's raise a ticket to the vendor where I came from." I said, "No, you don't need to raise a ticket." I said, "There's a knowledge base that they have. Go and look for this article. Go and look for that article number." And when they got there, my name was still there, even
Still
after I left
appended.
them. So for so
Mm,
many years, my name. So they said, also, that's the reason why you wanted us to go check it, because I've dealt with that type of issue before,
right.
resolved it, and I'm just, giving you guidance that this is how you can resolve it. So it's, the impact that we make in people's life.
It's
You
very
know,
critical.
it's
Right.
very critical. It's not, and I think that really stands out when you're looking at the brand that you have. Whatever
Hmm.
you think that you have in paper, in social media, on your resume or whatever, everything has to align.
It
And
has to
even when
align.
you have a discussion, conversation with people, they need to know who you are.
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
in speaking to some young, I think I won't say they're young adults, youth, recently, when I was asked to talk to them from a woman's perspective, I said to them, I said, I have a question. I said, the question that I have is this: if I were to reach out to two people, one or two people that really knows you, maybe they've had a type of relationship with you in the last 1 or 2 years. I said, what are those two things that they would tell me about you?
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, that really resonates with you, that defines who you are.
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
something that I want you to take home to go think about, but it's something that you can respond
Hmm.
immediately to tell
Hmm.
me. And those guys looked at me. I'm like, okay. And one of them just said that I'm trustworthy. I said, there you
Hmm.
go. There you.
Hmm.
So you know who
Yes.
you are, right? And
Mm.
so and this wraps around legacy, about sponsorship, which is not a one-way street; it's a two-way street. They
Absolutely.
learn from you. You
You
also
learn from
learn
them.
from them in
Hmm.
the process as well. So I'm so thankful to have you here, for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, and it's, your career journey is, we can see the growth there. And like I said earlier, we do not forget the days. of small beginnings.
Absolutely.
Because
I can't tell you that my career journey was linear, like my trajectory was linear.
uh-huh.
I don't think anybody can ever tell
I
you
don't think so, no.
that well, if they I would love to meet them and know how they did that.
Exactly.
But but you know,
Oh,
with every obstacle and every setback were learnings, you know what I
yeah.
mean, as
Yeah.
well, that help to shape and get you ready for that next level that you were going to, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
and that's what I believe. And you know, we just I believe as leaders and women leaders, we need to lead with authenticity, with kindness, you know what I mean, and with
Exactly.
warmth. Like I always say to
Yeah.
people, I'm kind but firm. I always tell my daughter, you are be kind but firm. Even when
Mm-hmm.
you're in a conflict, like, because you'll be in conflict at work, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like everybody's not going to agree on the same thing, but how do you have a constructive dialogue? How do you resolve conflict? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
In such a way that, you know, you still leave every person feeling dignified at the end of and you all come to a resolution. And I was at a board meeting last week, and you know, these are like strong women in this organization, and we were discussing some issues, and some people had different views, some people aligned, but we all had a respectful and constructive dialogue at the end
Which
of
is,
the day, you know,
yeah.
that we all left the place still laughing and talking and hugging one another, right? You know.
Absolutely.
But you know, the ability, you know, to have those tough and difficult conversations, but in a respectful and, you know, constructive manner, you know, is important as a leader. And you
Yeah.
know, always leave the person, you know, in a place where they still have their dignity.
Absolutely. And you know, that is actually one of the advice I do give to my team. I said solicit feedback.
Yes,
You have to, well, your whole project leads, but you have to solicit feedback, and do not frown at constructive feedback,
that's right.
because it
Hmm.
makes you grow.
Yes.
It gives you the opportunity to see yourself the
Hmm.
way others sees you, and
Hmm.
then also opens up opportunity to be able to make a change,
That's
and
right.
and move in the right direction. So I
Exactly.
don't bear upon constructive feedback. We all need it. We all
Yes,
need it.
absolutely.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
so thank you so much. Conversation like this, reminds me that mentorship, leadership, and growth are not one size fits all, like we said.
Exactly. They're
But
not.
it's the journey that proves that the impact is possible at every stage. Oh, so do you have one final thought as we sign off from this?
So I'm so happy that you're doing this, and you know, I pray that this podcast will be a blessing to many. But I would encourage the women, you know, leaders, you know, that would come on your call or would on your podcast, or that will listen to you, to lift as they climb, to make that time for others, right? I know we're all busy women, but make that time for others. Look for opportunities to open doors for
Yeah.
others, like others have opened doors for you, because we were helped.
Oh yes,
Nobody, you know,
absolutely,
like we didn't all get here by ourselves, right?
absolutely,
So send down the elevator, open doors for others, and you know, we're all going to be blessed. We will all rise together because nobody needs to be left behind.
exactly, exactly, exactly. So thank you so much,
Thank you
Adeola.
for having me. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you and
Bye.
have a good day. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.